Hi, it's James from the Excire team, and in this video, I'm going to show you how you can use Excire's Search by Aesthetics tool to quickly identify your most aesthetically pleasing photos from a larger batch of images or even from your entire Lightroom Classic catalog. Basically, Exire's technology has been extensively trained by expert photographers using hundreds of thousands of images so that it's able to intelligently evaluate photos. In fact, this AI technology has been used as a judge in international photography competitions. Now, when you initialize a photo with Excire Search, the software outputs an aesthetic score from 0 to 100, indicating how aesthetically pleasing it thinks that the image appears. The highest rated images are then the most aesthetically pleasing, while the lower rated images tend to be less impressive. Search by Aesthetics, as a result, is a great way to find your best photos, including some hidden gems from deep within your Lightroom catalog. It can also be useful for quickly selecting the best photos from a shoot, though if you need to do in-depth culling, I recommend using the AI-assisted culling tools, which are new in Excire Search 2026 and bring a variety of grouping and sorting features directly into Lightroom. If you are interested in Excire Search 2026's dedicated culling tools, I have covered them extensively in a few different videos, so I recommend you check those out. So let's just dive right in, fire up Lightroom, and see what we've got here. Now, the simplest way to work with Exire's aesthetic values is to just make sure you're in the library module of Lightroom, then go to Library, plug in Extras, and find the Search by Aesthetics option here. Now, this Search by Aesthetics dialog box will pop up, allowing you to rapidly access your most aesthetic photos or your least aesthetic photos. Just choose the relevant option here, and then tell Excire whether you want to search in your whole catalog or just in the film strip. You can also set the number of images that you want Excire to display, and then when you click Start here, Excire software will use its aesthetic scores to pull up the images matching your search, ranked from most aesthetic to least aesthetic, or vice versa. So, for example, if I want to see the 1,000 most aesthetic images in my catalog, I'll have the most aesthetic photos option selected, the whole catalog, and I'll set this to 1,000. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit Start. And then here is what I get. It's a gallery of images ordered by their aesthetic scores from the best gradually down to those that are less impressive in Exire's eyes, but still good because they're ranked in the top 1,000 images. And so, just so you can get a sense of what Excire views as less aesthetic photos, let me just quickly go back here and we'll take a look at these less aesthetic photos. I'm going to set that here. We're going to look at 1,000 in the whole catalog, and I'm going to hit Start Search. So here's what I get, and I'm sure we can all agree that these photos are indeed slightly less aesthetically pleasing compared to the images the Excire viewed as the most aesthetically pleasing. I'll also add a quick aside here. So you're going to always want to make sure that your sort order here is set to custom order. Otherwise, the images aren't going to display in order of their aesthetic scores, and the results will be confusing. You also have the option to review the aesthetic scores directly for each photo. So if you have an image selected in the library module, so I'll just pick this one here, and I'm going to open this up and come down to the metadata panel. If I have all plugin metadata selected, then I can see the aesthetic score here is 29.3. If you don't see aesthetic scores for your images, the aesthetic scores haven't actually been set to transfer into Lightroom during initialization. The aesthetic search options here will still work, but the aesthetic values won't be visible in Lightroom Classic. Fortunately, this is really easy to fix. Go to Library, plug in Extras, and then transfer aesthetic values right here. And then depending on what you want to transfer, you can select whole catalog or film strip, and then you just press Start. And this will add scores to your image metadata after the fact. Also, to ensure that Excire's aesthetic scores are always accessible and visible within Lightroom from the start, I do recommend taking one additional step when you initialize a new set of photos. So if you go here to Library, plug in Extras, and then initialize photos. So when you have a new batch of images, I just recommend selecting this option, Transfer Aesthetic Values after initialization, if you want those aesthetic scores to be transferred into Lightroom so they're visible here in the metadata panel. You have that checked, then you'll be good to go. The aesthetic score can be hugely useful for finding your best photos. Just keep in mind that photography is subjective. Even world-class photographers often disagree about image aesthetics and about quality. So, if your own judgment, that is, your personal sense of what looks good, doesn't always align with Excire's AI, that's completely okay. In other words, we want you to test out the Excire aesthetic search and then see how it works best for you. Well, that's all for now. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, click that like button, and for more tips and tutorials on Excire's AI-powered photo management tools, subscribe to our channel.